Hello everybody, thank you for joining me today. My name is Kathleen Joy and I am going to be showing you how to make your very own moss art piece. And we're going to be using a little kit that I created for you to be able to very easily take home, and everything that you need in order to create your own artwork is in this little kit. So I used to do these workshops live with everybody in the room with me, and I realized that there were just a lot of people who wanted to be able to take home the stuff and be able to do a workshop in their own time. So that's why I created this online workshop for you guys. So everything you need is going to be in this little kit. You've either joined me today because you bought one of these and you have the link to this video, or maybe you found my video and you're kind of interested in getting one of these kits. If so, the link is going to be down below in the description. So I'm going to show you everything that's in the kit and how to use all of the materials to create your very own moss art piece. So let's get started. Okay, welcome to my little workspace. I'll be using this little table. You can use any place in your house will do. You could do your living room, you could do your kitchen. I would say just kind of be aware that you might end up with like little pieces of moss in maybe around the floor or on the table, so just be aware of that and maybe choose a spot that's easy to vacuum or sweep up. All right, let's get started looking inside. So your kit will just come in a nice little box like this. We'll open it up. Inside you'll find my business card if you want to check out my social media, see what else I do as an artist. And we'll open it up. A nice little wax seal, which you can choose to use in your artwork if you want. I like to, I'll show you an example of my pieces here. I always actually seal my artwork with my signature. So this is my artist signature that I designed myself that represents my life, because I like to seal my artworks, just kind of saying this is my artwork. It's a unique kind of signature for what I do. So if you want to kind of do something like that, I did provide a little seal for you that is, oh, I don't think it's going to come in the camera here. It's a little different than my seal, but it does have a little tree on it too. Nice and gold too. And we have this tissue paper. Actually, we'll set that here. And the tissue paper is going to be great for laying down and using to protect your table if you want to. And we have all of our stuff that we can use for our artwork. Now you can use what I've provided in your kit, or if you want to, you can go outside and pick up your own kind of natural elements. And if you go to my website, you can actually get a little guide to download of what kind of natural elements work really well for moss art if you're unsure. So if you want to kind of use your own stuff, definitely check out my website and see what else you can use. But I'll provide you some nice things like pressed leaves, and every kit is going to be different and it'll change during the season, because these are things that I actually forage myself. So I found like a ton of little pine cones, and so I've got a lot of these in the kits right now. So no matter what, when you get your kits, even if you keep ordering them, they're going to be different every single time, because it kind of just depends on what I have on hand, what I've found in nature along my walks and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and just take out all of our stuff. Alright, so I've got my tissue paper out, and I'm going to use this to protect my surface. You can choose to use it to protect your table from any drips of glue or little pieces of moss if you want. It's a nice little protection if you want it. Or you could just lay down any kind of plastic or really anything. It's all very easy to clean up. So in your kit, you've got your board, which I've already attached this in order to hang it on the wall when you're all finished. So this is a real wooden board. It's about 8 inches by 8 inches. You've got flat moss. So these pieces here are called flat moss. Really, they're flat, nice and easy to remember. You've got the natural elements provided in your kit, and they're all going to be different, so I'm not sure which ones you've got right now. On this one, I've got some neat little sticks and some pine cones. I've got some pressed leaves. piece of moss there. We've got our little seal if we want to use that. We've got 2 different kinds of moss and our tacky glue. So you don't have to get your own glue. And we have our gloves, very important. So I recommend when you first open the box, first thing you want to do is put your gloves on because the moss can stain your fingers green. So just be aware of that as you are working. You want to try to keep your gloves on when you're touching the moss. Like you can touch it kind of lightly like I did and it probably won't do anything, but as you kind of handle it a lot, it'll stain your fingers green, and I learned that the hard way. So let's talk about our moss. We have these nice little cardboard boxes here, and we've got some lichen or reindeer moss in this one. Nice pretty green color. You might get different colors in your kit because everything's going to be a little bit different every time. Let's see what we've got in this one. We've got little mini pillow moss. The pillow moss is my favorite. It's really soft. It's really like puffy, like a pillow. It's one of my favorite mosses to use. So I've got little small pieces to use in your kit here. I've got another piece in here. And as you can see, it can get a little bit messy. So again, make sure you're in a place that's easy to like clean up. Easy to sweep, easy to vacuum. So I'm gonna just empty it out. All right, so let's get started on actually creating our very own piece of moss art. Oh, actually, before we get started, I should probably talk about the moss. So the nice thing about the moss is it is preserved. So it's kind of like it's in stasis, if you want to think of it that way. It does retain a lot of its properties that are really neat, like it helps kind of regulate moisture in the room, and it helps clean the air a little bit. Even though it's not technically alive, it still retains its beautiful look, and you don't have to water it, you don't have to give it sunlight. It's a great way to have something beautiful over the winter time, or maybe in a room that doesn't have enough light to have live plants in. So it's pretty great. I just recommend maybe not putting your artwork next to the fireplace or someplace that's extra humid, like a bathroom that's not very well ventilated, because you don't want to get anything too wet or too dry. So really, I would say the biggest thing that helps people when they come to my workshop is talking about composition. Now, composition is a really fancy term. It's like an artist term in how you arrange your artwork. So I'm just going to give you a few tips of what I do when I am creating artwork, either the moss artwork or any kind of painting, because this is the kind of things that you learn in art school really, and it creates a much prettier piece if you kind of follow some of the basic rules. So we have one rule that if you want to kind of visualize cutting this thing into quarters, so kind of imagine like a line here and a line here. We've got these little squares in each corner, and I recommend kind of choosing one of those areas in order to make like your most interesting kind of section. So let's look at this as an example. So here's a piece that I did, and I have these 2 sticks in here, and I've kind of made the top kind of right section here the most interesting section, because both of these are kind of close together, and so I made it like, here's what I call the focal point, instead of putting like, here's a stick way over here and here's a stick way over here. Another tip is when you put your elements on, I would suggest not having them like touch the edge necessarily, because if they have this little point right up against the corner here or right up against the edge, it kind of doesn't make a very restful kind of artwork. It's kind of a it's like a psychological trick really with artwork. If you give just a little bit of margin, it has a nice peaceful restful place for your eye to kind of take a rest. And I think with the moss artwork you really want them to be like have a sense of peace and have a sense of serenity. At least that's why I like to make them. So let's get started with our stuff. I mean, really, your glue is all you're gonna need, and you're gonna need to cut the top of that. So you're just gonna cut the top off of that. And your glue is gonna come out. And honestly, you can do this either way. Either you can just basically lay your glue all down like that, or what I suggest is first kind of deciding where you want to put your stuff. So it depends on who you are. Some people like to just go for it and kind of go with the flow and just kind of stick it all on before they think about it. But I like to kind of do a little arrangement first. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to try to use all of my pieces maybe like this. So here's kind of a walkthrough of just my mindset here. I like to kind of decide where my natural elements are going to go first before I put the moss on, or before I really think about the moss. So just kind of a rough idea, like, okay, I think I'll do something like this. So I've again kind of chosen my top right quadrant as the most interesting, I would say. And I'm going to try to leave a little bit of space here so it's not touching, and I kind of made a little bit of like, kind of like a shape here, and it's all kind of together. If you notice, I didn't put a pine cone over here and over here and over here and put a stick over here. And if you want to, it is kind of cool if you can make it work like kind of overlap. I think mine's not going to work as well on this one, but if you want to, there's no rules here really. I'm giving you suggestions, but you don't have to follow any rules. This is art. But if you can make it work, I would suggest either overlapping it or giving it space so that it doesn't touch. I just don't think it's as nice if it touches exactly on that frame, but overlapping it kind of gives it a flow as well. So, okay, so that's an example. So let's look at this. It's all spread out. Now that's not quite as comfortable to look at, I think, as when I had it kind of arranged in more of a one shape, if you want to think of it that way, where all of these sticks are kind of all touching each other. They're kind of flowing together as one sort of motion. And I got the pine cones. They're not all spread out. They're kind of grouped together. That's a little bit nicer to look at, I think. Something like that versus just kind of all over the place. So that's an example of composition. And then you can lay on your mosses if you want, but honestly, I feel like I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna put the glue on and kind of do something like what I did there as an idea. The nice thing about this glue is it doesn't dry too fast. So you can just kind of lay it on. Make sure you're getting all the way to the corners. Okay, so I find it easier to put the sticks on first. So maybe, oh, here's another tip that I'm thinking of. Okay, so you're looking at this and it's like, you want to make sure that you have like an kind of like an anchor point for something like this, where this stick is kind of, it can move around a lot, it's kind of up and down. You want to make sure there is a strong point of connection where it is definitely anchored in glue, and kind of gravity is your friend in that case, because I wouldn't want to like do something crazy that is like trying to stand it up like this, because that glue is not going to hold something like straight up like that. So just make sure, like if gravity helps it, it's probably good. So I'm going to stick it here, I think. Can I lay my sticks on first? I think for my pine cones I'm going to add a little bit more glue. I think I'm going to wait for my leaves, because if I put my leaves on, I think with something like this delicate, it'll be easier to do that after the moss is on. So I'm going to wait on these. I'm just gonna set them to the side. Now is a good time to decide if you want to add your seal or not. I think I will, just because you can put your seal anywhere really. I kind of just like it maybe in a corner. And I suggest kind of using your flat moss for bigger areas first, and using your lichen for kind of difficult to reach spots, like maybe between and underneath the sticks. I find that the easiest. Now here's a nice trick. I do not recommend cutting the pieces of the flat moss in order to make it kind of fit your area. I definitely recommend tearing, because if you cut, it doesn't really look as natural, but when you tear it, it keeps like a natural kind of an edge. So I just kind of tore a little piece off. I'm gonna stick it in the corner here. I'm gonna get this snug right into the corner there. You can even kind of push it. I really like to get it really, really snug against the edges. You can see I'm really pushing on it. It's gonna be hard to ruin it, so don't be, you don't have to be that delicate with it really, for the flat moss anyway. Maybe with this pillow moss, this is a little bit more delicate, so you want to be more careful. So I think with the pillow moss, since it's like my favorite, I kind of want it to be closer to my really interesting location over here, so I'm gonna stick it here. Just because I want it to be closer to the fun part, my focal point. I got a little bit more of the pillow moss over here. I'm gonna stick it kind of in here as well. Really get it in the corner there. I want it to be snug up against the edge, because that makes it look really tight and nice. As like, you know, the sticks are kind of popping up out of the moss and kind of going in and under, that makes it look really natural. I really like how this happens, so like the stick's popping up and then it kind of goes under the moss and pops out this way. I think that helps it look really natural and flowy, like it's kind of in the ground. So we call that biophilic design. So this kind of artwork, the terminology is biophilic, and basically it just means that we're kind of mimicking nature and bringing it indoors. Okay, so I got myself a little spoon, and this is optional if you want to use this, you know, super fancy tool or not. But if you kind of feel like you're having trouble getting in little areas, I love to use spoons for areas like underneath of sticks to just kind of squish the moss in there a little bit easier. Or maybe in that spot if your fingers are struggling to reach. I think spoons are great. What a wonderful artist tool. I think with my little, since I've got kind of some moss and things kind of laid down now, I think what I'm gonna do is start deciding where I'm gonna put these leaf guys. And I think I'm gonna try to make them kind of like stick on top. So if I had put it straight on the board first, then the moss would have covered up a lot of it, and I didn't want to do that. So I'm gonna use a little bit more glue in kind of this section first. So I would say when you're getting like a little space like that, okay, so I'm kind of roughly estimating what size and shape I kind of need to pull off of here. It is much better to go a little bit bigger than a little bit smaller, because you can kind of squish it in there and it helps really tighten up all of the moss pieces. So you see how everything kind of squished in there because it was a little bit tight? That's a really good thing. You want that to happen because you want to not have like, well, at least in my case, I didn't want to have any of the background of my wood piece showing. So I like it really, really tight. And I've got like one little area in here. I'm gonna stick the moss in here, and a good example if you want to use, or even a pencil will work, really just anything, just to kind of cram it in there. So technically, we are all done, and you could just let this sit just like this. But another advanced technique, you can use a spoon, and I like to clean up the edges by like really just squishing down on the edges like this, and it really cleans up that edge nicely, I feel. Just make sure everything's kind of pressed down, and then you want to let this dry 100%. So I would recommend leaving it overnight, but I'll show you the next step that you're going to do after it's 100% dry. All right, so I'm going to bring this piece in as an example. So this guy has been dry for a while. It is definitely dry. I recommend waiting maybe 24 hours just to be sure. And the last step you're going to do is turn it upside down and tap it. Try to get as much excess off as possible. So all these little pieces of lichen, pieces of dirt, all that kind of stuff. You see all this little stuff here, all the hairy stuff. That's gonna start falling off as you tap it. So tap it over like a garbage bag or over like, you know, our workspace like this, just to catch all the little pieces. And then that will make sure that your piece is nice and clean and ready to hang up and enjoy beautiful biophilic moss artwork of your own. Thank you so much for joining me for this workshop, and I hope that you enjoyed yourself, and I hope that you do post your artwork on social media, and then please tag me so I can see what you created. You can tag me at Kathleen Joy Art. See you next time.